Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for getting here on time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask all of my speakers very briefly to introduce themselves. Lawrence, I'm going to leave you last because you've got a lot of fans here. Maybe you can do something special for us. Richard, can we start with you?
Yeah, hello. Morning, everybody. My name is Richard Elston. I'm the group responsible for the institutional business at CMC Markets.
Thank you. Gavin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gavin White. I'm CEO of Invast Global. We're a multi-asset boutique prime services firm based in Sydney, but clients across the globe.
Yanni.
Hi, I'm CEO and founder of eToro, the world's largest social trading network. We have about 10 million users who trade stocks, commodities, currencies, and cryptocurrencies, and everyone can see, follow, and automatically copy the top traders on the network.
Jacob.
Jacob Plattner with Scope Markets. Scope is a relatively new institutional firm offering a multi-asset class cross API and the world's favorite platforms, i.e. MetaTrader.
I'm Lawrence Cook from Cambodian Derivative Exchange and CDX, here to help so your cash can grow. Born in Phnom Penh, but we're international. Finance Online, we're here for a purpose. 24-hour customer service, professional. Here to assist you, investing wisely, no longer an issue. Study the market, yeah, that's a must. Plus, CDX is the one you can trust. We give it our all till our job is done. Your priority, it's our number one. And this rap really puts me in a certain mood. Excellent, it's not a skill, it's an attitude.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. So I hope that sets the tone for a little bit of interesting conversation for the next 45 minutes or so. So I'm going to open up with a look at, I suppose, what's been happening in Europe and ESMA making a lot of changes from a regulatory perspective. And I think what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about how has that impact how you guys look at Asia and your business over here, and what have you done differently that you would have been doing a year ago? So maybe, can I start with you, Richard?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can follow that up. I mean, given the what we had just now, I think this is going to be a pretty staid and boring response.
I thought it was agreed we were all rapping. All answers are in raps.
Sorry, Gavin, that's not going to happen, no. I think for us, really, I mean, yes, of course, APAC is important. At the same time, ESMA, yes, and it's undeniable there has been some impact. I think there's also been some stability that's come along in the wake of ESMA. Certainly, over the course of the last few months, I think we've had an increase in volumes. You know, APAC, we've been here for coming on 2 decades as well. We have offices in Sydney, in Shanghai, and also in Singapore as well. So yes, there has been a focus increase to a small percentage over the course of the last few months, but it's been a long-term play for us. It's not been something specifically that we've refocused on in recent times. It's about being able to service the entire region for us in multiple countries, and also being in the right time zone to be able to service those countries.
Right. Jacob, maybe I'll jump over to you.
Sure. So European regulation changes really haven't affected us greatly, but we've definitely seen how it's affected the industry. And one of the things that we've been quite cognizant of is when regulation changes, obviously a big part of the industry will start to change with it, especially when you start looking at things that are important to clients, like service and a local touch. I think you had a lot of foreign brokers, especially in Asia, that were bringing a very Western-style approach to their business. And I don't think that really works here. And I think with new regulation, obviously, players that are really looking to make an impact in the region and stay focused here are going to survive, and the ones that aren't will no longer survive. So I think in terms of regulation, while it hasn't affected our business, it's certainly affected the industry, and it, I think, allows us all to take a little bit different approach to how you come to this part of the world and do business.
Yanni?
Well, I think generally what we're seeing is regulation sort of forcing a lot of the companies to segregate their businesses. So any business that was focused only on Europe sort of had to set up their Asian business to be able to offer higher leverage to customers outside of Europe. So basically, the restrictions in Europe forced all of the players in Europe to actually set up overseas or Asian offices as well, which I think sort of supports the industry's expansion into Asia. I think everybody's looking at Asia and Southeast Asia as significant growth markets.
Gavin.
We've seen a direct and immediate influence on our business from the ESMA changes. We've seen a lot more demand from this part of the world as brokers have shifted some of their flow to this part of the world. We were planning on opening a European office as a priority this year, but we've actually changed our mind and focused on prioritising the opening of an office here in Hong Kong, which has just happened. We've got a new CEO in place and we've hired half a dozen people locally. We're very bullish on Hong Kong and this part of the world, and a big part of that is because of the regulatory changes. I think some of the other things that are happening because of those regulatory changes, I see two other things. And one is a move towards multi-asset instruments, which rely less on high leverage. And as I was saying to Yoni earlier, I think Yoni and his business model will benefit a lot from the lower leverage environment. Our parent company is Japanese, and when the Japanese leverage restrictions came in, there was an immediate fall in turnover overall across the industry, but then there was a big comeback in turnover, particularly in automated trading platforms, where people, retail traders who were no longer able to take large positions, decided they wanted to trade more and wanted to be able to trade overnight while they were asleep, and there was a big push into automated trading services. So I'm sure, Yoni, you will see some very strong benefits from that type of trend in the future.
And Lawrence, as more of a local person, how do you see it? And do you see some of the regulatory changes coming over here also?
Well, I think it has more impact for the British pound than the country, and for European countries and different jurisdictions, especially in Europe, that they're getting the license from either FCA or from other parts of or jurisdiction from European countries that maybe they're doing other business in Asia. Maybe they need to diversify their business here in around the Asian countries. Not a lot of impact for us because we have always been focused in Asia Pacific and also in the Asian countries, to say the least. Today I'm here to promote Cambodia, but also not only that, but we also have the support from the government here, the Security Exchange Commission of Cambodia here, the Security Exchange of Commission of Myanmar here. Never have you seen regulators would come to events like this to promote our market with us. So, I mean, globalization, all licenses from all over the world. You can do business in Europe, but you can also do business in Asia. So the focus is back here in Asia, and I see that there are more companies coming here, and I think that's a good thing.
So in terms of the local, so the Asian market, maybe I'll go back to Gavin. How do you see the different countries? Do you see any leaders emerging? Where are the big growth areas for 2019?
Well, again, I think we're very, very bullish on Hong Kong, and we plan to use Hong Kong as a base to service our clients across the region. There are, as I think Lawrence just alluded to, there are many very interesting jurisdictions that are maturing across the region, and the industry, I think, is very healthy in this part of the world as a result. So, Cambodia, Myanmar, Thailand, Indonesia, there are a lot of different jurisdictions that offer a lot of opportunity. I think what we've got to make sure we do is that we don't rush at these opportunities. I think we need to, as industry leaders, make sure that we approach these markets sensibly and with an honourable approach and a long-term view. I think we have to take a very long-term view for everything and not opportunistic.
Right. Jacob.
In terms of markets, obviously, we still see China as a very big growth market. But we're looking at other countries as well. I think, like the rest of our industry, in terms of Vietnam, Malaysia, different pockets of APAC that might make sense for us. But really, China, I think, is what we see is still a big mover in the market. I can't say that I see a bunch of other different countries, but these are the main ones that I think, at least as our company, will be focusing on.
So for eToro, we've expanded into Asia in the last couple of years. We have about 50 people in Shanghai. And over the last year, we've also expanded our Hong Kong office to sort of focus not only on China, but also on Southeast Asia, so Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. So definitely we're seeing sort of the need to expand, to localize to these specific markets, and we see a huge potential in these markets who are relatively, again, the capital markets infrastructure in a lot of the countries in Southeast Asia is not as sophisticated as it is in either Europe or the US. So the opportunity for people to sort of join a global brokerage and global brands are actually very significant.
Okay, and you're putting local teams in every country to deal with the
So
difference.
we've focused our Southeast Asia team here in Hong Kong. So we have an office in Hong Kong to basically cater Southeast Asia.
And Gavin?
One of the most important things I think coming up for the region is the fact that the Hong Kong SFC is contemplating a new license type for OTC derivatives. We've put a lot of research into that ourselves and to what the opportunities will be should that license type come into existence. There's the potential for a wide range of CFDs to be offered to the public as a result of that impending new license type. It's one of the main reasons why we've decided to prioritise Hong Kong. And similar to Yoni, I think it makes a great base to be able to service all the opportunities across the region.
Okay. And so, Lawrence, are you part of that with the SFC and introducing new instruments in the
Well,
region?
I'm from Hong Kong. I love SFC. I love being regulated. I'm a firm believer in the China market as well. It's just that how do we get money out now? That's another issue. I'm sure all of you, if you're in the industry, you know what I'm saying. And if I'm not rushing to anything, we're going to talk about crypto in a second. I know that. But firm believer, home court advantage in Hong Kong, SFC rules.
Okay. Well, we will talk about crypto in a second, but I might just ask Jonathan, do we have any questions from the floor? No. Okay. Okay, who wants to talk about crypto? I guess, this time last year versus now we're in a very, very different place. So what is the future for crypto for 2019? Let's start with Yanni.
Sure. So we're definitely in a crypto bear market. I think last year at this time we were all sort of in crypto mania and crypto euphoria. But we've been in the crypto market since 2010. We were very lucky to sort of be in the right time at the right place and become one of the sort of largest crypto brokers around the world. But I think what we're seeing now is very similar to sort of two things. One is the 2014 bear market. So unfortunately, I didn't expect this to be such a long bear market. But this looks very similar to the bear market post Mt. Gox crash. And the second part, which is a bigger narrative, this looks very similar to the dot-com bubble, right? So I remember trading the dot-com stocks, unfortunately, very similar, again, investing in pink sheets back then, very similar to investing in ICOs last year. But it was very sort of clear back then in '99 that the internet is going to change our lives and it's going to sort of completely change the world. but a lot of people were very skeptical of the business model. And while entrepreneurs were sort of inspired and everybody was looking at new business models, eventually when the crash came, everybody thought everybody thought that they were right, that it was a bubble, and that the internet is a scam. And that's sort of what we're seeing now. We're seeing a lot of institutional investors saying, okay, so Bitcoin is a scam and it crashed and we told you it's going to crash. But it's very similar. I think the ones that are in the industry understand that blockchain is sort of the internet of value, which is actually much bigger than information if you think about it. So potentially sort of the crypto industry is actually bigger than the internet revolution. And the ones that are in the industry understand how big the opportunity is, sort of disrupting banking and insurance and financial services. But I think we're just at the beginning of adoption. And it's a great opportunity now to actually build that infrastructure, preparing for what's coming.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on the .com. It's almost like the second pass is where a lot of mistakes get corrected, and there's a new way to look at it. So in terms of regrowth of crypto, then Jacob, where do you see things going?
To be honest, I really don't know. In terms of cryptos, it's something that we've offered. I think, as Yoni kind of put it, and everybody was kind of asking for them, and everybody was wondering what was going to happen with cryptos. But in terms of where it goes as an actual coin, I have a very tough time understanding the value of a coin. Blockchain, I see obvious. It's going to become a very, very apparent piece of technology, I think, throughout not just financial services, but insurance, different industries where, as Yoni put it, information is so important to have it at your fingertips. But in terms of a coin, I don't really know. I mean, as Lawrence kind of put it about how do we get our money out of China at the moment, coins might be a very good use of this, but again, how does the industry go about it in a way that regulators allow us to do this business and continue doing it in a way that actually suits the clients? In terms of crypto, I have a very tough time understanding the actual value and whether we're in a bear market or if there actually is a market, who are the players in the market. But in terms of its uses, I think, it's fairly unlimited in terms of how it can be used, but where it will shape up in terms of what type of market and the players that, sort of from our industry, where it goes, I think is a very difficult question, at least from where I sit, to be able to give any insight in terms of where the market takes it or whether we're still trading cryptos or if they're just used for something different.
And Lawrence, where do you sit on this?
To be honest, I didn't believe in crypto several years ago. And blockchain, for sure, will change our lives. And it's a technology that it will change our life if it's like the .com. And nowadays, we see crypto companies and ICO everywhere. And when I went to Cyprus last year, I learned that we have crypto as a major in university. I think that's amazing, and that will change our lives. Instead of using crypto as an investment product, so bearish or bullish, I really don't care. But I care about crypto as a tool so that we could get our money out of anywhere that's FX restriction. But of course, once again, love being regulated. So of course, we need to play along with the regulations in different jurisdictions.
Richard.
I suppose a couple of things come to mind where crypto is concerned. First and foremost, I have to be honest, I'm a bit of a detractor at the moment. For me, it's another asset class. It's one of 10,000 instruments that we do. I don't necessarily get it. We've seen the market dive significantly during the course of the last 12 months until I can walk into a coffee bar and pay for it with my Apple Pay or some similar mechanism. I don't feel that adoption is going to be there. I have absolute faith that blockchain is going to be very, very much something, but the crypto coin at the moment, I'm not feeling it. But on the other hand, it is an asset class. We're a multi-asset class entity. We provide liquidity across across multiple instruments, and it's our obligation to provide crypto as well. But in terms of treating it any differently to anything else, no. But of course, it should be available.
I think we have a question from the floor.
Yeah, we have several, but one regarding crypto. While we're at it, we're being asked, what do you expect from new approach to crypto based on centralized blockchain, such as TON, SIC originally, to be launched in 2029? I don't ask the questions.
TON like the Telegram one?
I presume.
So, again, I think what we're seeing right now, and it's a good thing and a bad thing. I think people, again, underestimate significantly the technology, and I think we see it here on the stage. So if you think about like 5-10 years in the future, all of our businesses are going to be significantly disrupted because consumers are going to demand to be able to remove their assets from our brokerages into their ledgers or into their wallets and be able to transfer their assets, right? So all of the companies here basically provide services to trade the markets, but don't enable consumers to actually exchange those assets from one place to another. I think that's going to basically kill this industry. I think that the current FX and CFD industry is going to die and going to reemerge as crypto assets and digital assets. Now, regarding TON, it's a very interesting project. So we trade.
Could I ask you to explain what that is in case everybody doesn't understand?
Sure. Again, that's what I understood from the question. I'm not sure that was the question. But there was one of the biggest ICOs in 2018 was the Telegram. So Telegram is sort of like WhatsApp, Viber. Messaging, 200 million active users. Never raised funds traditionally, so they raised $1.7 billion in an ICO, one of the largest ICOs ever, I think only second to EOS, which raised about $4 billion. They haven't launched their network yet, but their white paper, or what they're describing, and that's why they raised the $1.7 billion, is really a completely decentralized ecosystem of messaging, VPN, file storage, so basically sort of a cloud ecosystem that's all based on the Telegram open network, which is TON, and the token itself is grams. So people expect when that launches for it to be almost certainly one of the top 10 cryptocurrencies. With the current market where it is, if they raised $1.7 billion, it should be probably one of the top 5 cryptocurrencies. And obviously, today cryptocurrency adoption is not it's still not in mass adoption, but in theory, things like Telegram could bring it to mass adoption. The same goes to sort of BitTorrent and Tron, which is another cryptocurrency, so they sound a bit similar. So you can do Tron or TON.
Right. Gavin, how do you feel about cryptos?
I'm quite ambivalent, really, to be honest. We have the largest brokers in the world as our clients, and some very large hedge funds as well. We've had very little demand at all and very little volume in the crypto. So from our perspective, it's not something that we're extremely excited about. We're certainly not going to lead the field in terms of allowing access to our clients to crypto liquidity. If it becomes popular and there is demand, then we will follow those leaders and we will just attempt to do it better. And that's essentially our philosophy. At this stage, we quite frankly just have not seen the flow or the demand to get us excited about it.
By the way, what we do see is very clear sort of correlation or reverse correlation between the age of customers and their interest in cryptocurrencies. Sorry,
Yanni, come on.
No, sorry.
That was a little bit rude.
I'm
We're
looking
not
at the
talking
young
about the
people
panel,
here in the
right?
audience.
Are you offended, Gavin?
But it's very. I'm like the oldest generation Y, so I'm taking very pride. So I'm like 81. I constantly say I'm generation Y. Though some people already exclude me from that, but there's a big question whether crypto is like an asset class of generation Y. So when we talk to sort of younger audience, we also see it very clearly in sort of our numbers, like the 22, 20 to 30 age group in eToro are the ones trading crypto. And there's a question whether this is the asset class of that generation, right? So each generation has its own sort of asset class. And if that generation, which is going to be the richest and biggest generation on earth, right? So it's already sort of a growing cohort of customers. They're getting into their prime. So it's a new generation just sort of now accumulating assets. If that's going to be the asset of their choice, that's really a very big opportunity. And it has that sort of technological aspect of an asset where you can actually transfer it and you can move it from one place to another. So you have sort of a younger generation who looks at this asset from a technology point of view and say, okay, we expect when we invest in something to be able to move it from one place to another. And then they look at things like CFDs or traditional stocks. And you know, when you try to move stocks from one broker to another, it could take a fucking month for it to actually move. And they're like, that doesn't make any sense. Everything should be real time. Everything should be settled. So it's definitely a generational sort of leap on crypto assets.
Can I ask a question as well on that? Like, so where I struggle with this, and this is, and openly I'm a bit of a detractor. It's probably through lack of knowledge and that generational gap that you're talking about as well. But
I'm younger than I look, by the way, Yannick.
I'm 12 but at the same time, so I was speaking with somebody that was, I would argue very much, who is extremely prominent within the crypto world. Yet during that conversation, I found that prominent individual making benchmark references back to dollars still. And if I'm thinking about crypto coins, surely I should be thinking about crypto coins and damn the dollar, or damn whatever currency you're benchmarking it against. But that felt like a paradox. It was an anathema to me. Why was that happening?
Maybe because they were talking to you, so they wanted to give a benchmark of the dollar, so something you're familiar with.
Layman's terms, okay.
First of all, what we see in Asia, we definitely see people benchmarking their wealth directly into Bitcoin. And again, this is fairly new. So when people think about crypto assets, and again, this is very exciting because I think suddenly a lot of people are talking about like the philosophy of money, right? People doubt, so everybody's talking about fiat money, right? Who the hell talked about fiat money 10 years ago and called basically all the currencies fiat, right? So people are actually challenging the fact that nation states are printing money. People are challenging the fact that fiat money is inflationary and sort of losing its value. And that's very interesting because it's a very significant sort of geopolitical impact if that actually happens. So suddenly you have those assets who are detached from geography. So what's interesting here is all of our companies are very global by nature, but financial services is still a hyper-local industry, right? So if you look at the financial services industry, in every place it'll be very, very local, sort of still the big brokers, the big banks. Currency is hyper-local by nature. Currency has the problem of actually controls and regulation, etc. And this is just something completely new. So of course people need to benchmark it to something like the dollar, which is sort of the world reserve currency. But I think that's the entire point. People sort of are inspired that maybe crypto or Bitcoin is sort of the next reserve currency.
Gavin, you wanted to jump in there.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think Yanni's absolutely correct in terms of the cryptocurrencies bringing a new demographic into the industry of clients, and I think it's been exceptional in that. Probably never before in history have we seen such a growth in accounts. The problem is we have to, those people have to be profitable in order to stay around. And unfortunately, I don't think we've seen that in the last few years. So that's something that as industry leaders, we need to work out a way to keep those new clients on board potentially algo trading or automated trading is the way, with the risk parameters that are embedded in some of those algos. But we need to keep those new entrants to the industry around, and then to cross-sell them into some of the more traditional, less speculative asset classes in order to have their life value of their account to be significantly higher.
We've seen, by the way, something really interesting. So we've seen research from Facebook about the demographics of our clients, and actually that surprised me to see it. Crypto traders have nothing to do with CFD traders. Like, it's a completely different demographic, and actually our crypto traders are closer to stock traders. So we're seeing a lot of sort of people who came into crypto trading single equity stocks, trading a lot of cannabis stocks, some similarities between cannabis and crypto, I don't know what. But definitely a very different audience than the traditional leveraged FX, leveraged CFD industry to the crypto industry.
I do think as well, and I do think as well, though, in terms of the value to the brokers and the broking industry, I think it's dangerous to let crypto take all the oxygen out of the room. I said the same thing last year on this panel. I think it's getting a lot of attention. It's certainly an interesting asset class, but I think it gets a lot more attention than the value that it's bringing to us as an industry. It's bringing on new clients, but they're not sticking around. And I think it is dangerous for us to let it take up so much of our attention, quite frankly.
So where are you putting your attention then?
Our attention is on the more traditional asset classes. Like I said, we respond to demand from our brokers. And again, like I said, our brokers are the biggest brokers in the world, and we're not seeing the demand from them. I'm sure others have different views about that the demand will come. Yoni's saying that in a few years' time it could be the centre of what we do is the crypto, and it could change everything. But we're putting our focus squarely on providing multi-asset, so ETF, stock trading capability, futures, FX into some of the platforms, particularly MT5, with all of the price redistribution problems sorted. So we've got price redistribution agreements with all of the exchanges, and we're, with the help of 1.0, putting those prices and that technology into MT5 for clients to be able to diversify in a sophisticated and long-term way.
Jacob, would you agree with Gavin there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a very similar approach. When I look at 2019, I think we originally thought that this was going to be a year where interest rates were going to start to move, and it seems that that's definitely not the case at the moment. So when I look at FX, which is traditionally where most of our volumes have come from, that and spot metals, it seems to be what looks like a very uninteresting year in those products, but I think equities and indices will prove to be quite interesting this year in terms of where they go. Growth is obviously, especially in this part of the world, something that's being looked at heavily on by I think every financial service firm and almost every client that's sort of trading or has anything invested in the markets. So for us, it's definitely I think less on FX this year and your traditional sort of products that the industry has been pitching for the last 10 years. And to be honest, cryptos might be interesting as well in terms of if you're looking at something that moves, and clients are generally looking for something that moves, I think these are the products that we'll see kind of make a name or at least be more prevalent in what we talk about this year. I just don't see much in terms of FX in gold this year unless maybe the market really falls off. But indices, equities, I think are going to be a big focus for us this year.
Okay, and so I'm going to ask everybody in a second what they see the year as, but I think we may have some questions from the floor.
Yes, we're heading toward the end, and I have here a couple of questions. I'll try to combine them. Tom Higgins, CEO at Goldeye, asks, when will China regulate FX? And I'm soon enough adding another question. How do you work with the country that didn't recognize Forex and you cannot do regulation there? This question is anonymous. I'm not sure why. So it's kind of, two flips of the same coin in terms of unregulated markets and or China.
Lawrence, do you want to start with that?
Well, I think regulations...
Sorry, Lawrence.
Like I said before, I'm a firm believer on regulations and love being regulated. But do we do business in unregulated markets, and how are we going to do it? Do we have business partners, affiliates, and brokers there? Yes, of course. But we are staying in the jurisdiction that are being regulated. So big markets in China. I mean, everybody wants a piece of China. If you missed that 10 years, 15 years ago, come to Cambodia, Myanmar. But still, we need regulations to make this work. So if we're talking about, well, we were just talking about FX and bullion. I just wanted to say that when currency came out many years ago, bullion market, gold, has been here for 100,000 years. It won't disappear. I mean, it doesn't matter if crypto, it's in the market now, currency won't disappear. I don't believe it will, at least not in my lifetime. Not only that it is a tool for general anybody to use, but also it's a tool for any governments politically to use. So, but crypto, of course, it's a power to reckon. But regulations, yes, it's important.
So first of all, I 100% agree. Fiat currencies, nation state currencies are definitely here to stay. They're just going to be digitized. So eventually we're going to see sort of digital yuan and pound and dollars on different blockchains, probably nation blockchains. But regarding regulation, and I think that's a bit of a culture difference, and I assume like everybody here in this conference, by definition, deals quite a bit with regulators and regulations. But I think some places are just a bit in the gray area by definition. So it's not the lack of regulation, it's by definition, there are some markets that are gray, and it's not clear how they operate, but everybody operates in a manner, and in a sort of, there's a status quo of how people operate without clear regulations, and that sort of defines the market. Now, that's true for a lot of the markets. So a lot of us are regulated, let's say, in, 1, 2, we have 5 different regulators from Australia to UK to Europe to US to South Africa, but each of us still accept customers from a lot of other countries, right? So we have customers from 140 different countries. We're not regulated in 140 different countries, right? So you'll have legal opinions and you do cross-border. So a lot of the cross-border industry is still somewhat fluid. And I think China is just this area where obviously a lot of people operate in China. And it's still sort of in the gray area. And it's probably, by the way, gonna stay that way.
I just would like to add on to the gray area. I agree that there are some jurisdictions that we do business in, that it's in the gray area. But I just wanted to introduce the light gray area instead of the dark gray area. Now, it's a spectrum, so this is all white here and all black here. Nobody wants to be on the all black side, but there are executions and things that we do, and protocol and standard that we do to make sure that we're on the light side of the gray area. So never be in the dark side of the gray area. That's most important, I think.
Okay, thank you. So last question, Richard and Gavin, any thoughts for where we're going to be this time next year?
Definitely not where crypto is concerned. But in terms of everything else, I think that what we've seen this year at CMC is we have seen a shift in our volumes, specifically here in Asia. I think it would be fair to say that it's traditionally been an FX market, and I agree with what Jacob and Gavin were saying before. There has been a shift over to multi-asset class. We're seeing a little bit more in the index and in the single stock field. We probably don't see crypto because the kind of customers that we face are those more traditional customers, and that's why the volumes for us, similarly to as Gavin was commenting, don't seem to be particularly prevalent in the crypto area. But I think if we're going to carry on seeing, if the trend is going to follow through, we are going to see a somewhat reduction in FX volumes, and that just propensity to go towards multi-asset class, which suits us extremely well. It's what we're in the business of delivering multi-asset class solutions, tech and liquidity through APIs. So I hope that is what we see for the rest.
Anything to add there, Gavin?
Nothing really to add, just to back it up, really. Multi-asset, I think an increase in automated trading with a lower leverage, I think is something a trend that we should look out for, a trend that we saw in Japan in the same circumstances. And I think crypto will be around, but I'm just not sure about how important it will be to the industry.
Okay, so we're out of time, so I'd like very much to thank Jacob, Lawrence, Yanni, Gavin and Richard for their time. Thank you very much.